Yet another video to get freaked out by the ever-increasing passage of time, which to be honest is nothing new on this channel, so hello and welcome to another monthly reading wrap-up. In this video I'm going to be telling you about the 6 books I read in May, what they're about, why I rate them out of 5 stars, and what I liked and disliked about them. And if you're new here, hi, welcome, I'm Katerina, it's absolutely grand to see you here. I make videos yapping about books, and if that's your jam, why not subscribe? So kicking May off, the very first book I read was The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin. Here the author basically wrote 2 essays that explores racial issues within America, because when this was published, it was exactly 100 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. So the first letter is addressed to James Baldwin's nephew, which basically examines the harsh reality of being born black within the US. And the second is a deep dive into Baldwin's own experience with religion and race, particularly critiquing how Islam and Christianity can play roles in contributing to racial oppression. And starting off with an absolute high, I rated this book 5 stars, which is actually the only 5-star read I gave out this month. This is the 3rd Baldwin book I've read, and there's just something so special and unique about his writing. He's able to capture such specific societal observations that, in my opinion, go widely unnoticed, whilst at the same time addresses it in a way that's digestible enough to understand but still keeps it engaging. For example, I've never personally considered how religion can hinder civil rights in America, especially in regards to Islam, and this shed light on something that I hadn't considered before in a way that wasn't judgmental. He also suggests solutions on practices and attitudes that both white and black people can adopt in order to solve these issues, but in a way that doesn't come across as preachy or patronizing. And I honestly think that is such a talent to be able to write like that, because this author himself has faced unbelievable racial injustice throughout his life, yet he remains so unbiased within his own work. It's also just astounding how relevant everything discussed here is to the ongoing political and social struggles that are faced today, despite this book written over 50 years ago, which to be honest is actually a little bit heartbreaking. Like, how have we not made much progress in that time? But honestly, every James Baldwin book I read, I just seem to fall more and more in love with him each time because he's just so incredible. This was an absolutely stunning read, and one that I actually want to read again very soon because it was just that good. However, my next book is actually one I hope to never read again, and that's Alone with You in the Ether by Olivie Blake. This is a contemporary romance novel that's set in Chicago, and it explores difficulties of mental health within relationships. We follow a guy who is a PhD student who is obsessed with maths and time, as well as a girl who is an artist with bipolar disorder. And through a series of conversations, we see how love can be both a refuge and a challenge in each of these characters. And unfortunately, I did not like this book, and I actually only gave it 1.5 stars, which is a hilarious 180 compared to the first one. I can only apologize for this opinion because this book had a lot of 5-star reviews on Goodreads, so I'm going to assume that some of you watching this actually liked the book. In the book's defense, it genuinely started off promising. I enjoyed the conversations they had about bees and time and parallel universes and art, and I liked the concept of exploring characters with mental health navigating their way through love. However, nice concept, but horrible execution. My enjoyment for this book probably stopped about a third of the way in. The writing was just so unbelievably pretentious. It was just too self-indulgent that it became a pain to read. I mentioned this previously, but it just had that Tumblr 2014 Born to Die tone of writing to it. If you know, you know. Everything was so dramatic and over-emotional when really it wasn't that deep. Like, the plot of the story wasn't important or profound enough to match the theatrics of the writing that was going on here. And there's no real plot to this novel either. It is just about these 2 characters having these conversations. So it is incredibly character driven, but this is a huge issue when both of these characters were just absolutely insufferable. To me, they just came across as very self-absorbed and boring, and were just driveling about problems that weren't really problems. Looking back, I think I actually didn't mind the guy that much, but I didn't like the girl. She came across as very manipulative and dependent. Maybe I just had completely different expectations of this book than what I had imagined, so it was very different when I actually read it. But not gonna lie, didn't really enjoy this one, and I'm sorry if you did. However, we do yet another 180 because the next book I read I actually really enjoyed, and that's Bad Habits by Alana Portero. And I read the translated version by Mara Faye Letham, as this is a Spanish novel. This is a coming-of-age story set in Madrid within the 1980s and 90s, and we follow a trans woman grow up in a working-class area where we witness her various struggles with gender identity, societal expectations, and just the search for belonging within a transphobic and patriarchal environment. And all of this is happening within the heroin epidemic dynamic as well as shifting cultural attitudes. And I rated this 4.5 stars because this is how you write a good character-driven book. The best way I would describe this book is that it's a mix between My Brilliant Friends by Elena Ferrante and The Queens of Sarmiento Park by Camila Sosa Villada. It just had this stunning and observant societal commentary on past attitudes and how they're slowly shifting through time. And it also included some incredible passages on gender roles, especially how women have to navigate this man's world. It also had these super dynamic characters. To me, they felt really real and multifaceted because that's really what the whole book is about. It shows the importance of who you surround yourself with and how you're ultimately shaped by the people you grow up with and how life-changing role models can be in your life. This story is also just raw and devastating, and your heart honestly bleeds for all the women here because it is devastating to witness this hurt that's inflicted on trans people solely on the basis of this construct that we've made called masculinity. And also, the book is just a gorgeous homage to sisterhood. It really showcases how this is one of the beautiful things about being a woman. It's definitely something that I'm grateful for, being born a girl, and this book just articulates that feeling of so well, of having these other women in your life that really bring you up. The only reason I didn't give this 5 stars is that there are times in the novel when like the character's a young child that the reflections and commentary didn't really seem to match that age. For example, when she is a child, she witnesses certain things and has these very astute and mature and very unchildlike thoughts about what's going on around her. And it did kind of pull me out the story because I was like, no child would realistically think that at that age. But that being said, this is definitely the best book that I've read that has really allowed me to understand what it's like living in this world to be trans. And I think from that alone, this book is definitely worth reading, so I would very much recommend you to pick this up as soon as possible. However, for my next book, you're probably thinking, surely not another 182. Well, you'd very much be correct because this was actually my worst book of the month, and it was On the Beach by Nevil Shute. This novel was written in the 50s, and it's a post-apocalyptic story of a nuclear war that happened in the Northern Hemisphere. And this has obviously devastated the environment to the point where this fatal radiation is slowly seeping south. And the book is set in Australia, where we follow a group of characters essentially grapple with their inevitable death. And we see how these characters live their final days, showcasing resilience but also denial. And even though that plot sounds amazing, I absolutely hated this and I only gave it 1 star because this was honestly the most boring book I've read all year. I didn't even think it was possible to write a boring post-apocalyptic book, but Nevil Shute, you proved me wrong. Like, the concept of this book sounds great. Like, wow, people having to confront their own death. Like, I was already thinking like, wow, you know, how would they spend their time when they know they have such little of it left, and what interesting conversations would they have with their fellow survivors? But none of that happens. I could honestly go on for an hour about why this book sucked, but I'll try and keep it brief. Firstly, the plot. Like, the main character is this military man, and I'm not even kidding when I tell you that there are literally pages and pages and pages of him just talking to other military men about strategy and different cities that are affected. And it's not even interesting chat. It's literally just like, well, San Francisco is gone, which obviously means that Boston and New York is gone, and well, maybe London and Paris is too. Madrid is definitely gone. We could try and go to Shanghai, but Shanghai is definitely not going to be there. Maybe the whole of China is affected as well. Just that. For chapters, honestly. Take a shot every time a city is mentioned and you'll literally be gone in the first 20 pages. The characters are also just rubbish. Like, they're so one-dimensional and stereotypically sexist of the 1950s. The men are written to be so stoic and brave, and the women are written to be really dramatic and ditzy. Every single conversation goes like this. Oh, honey, I'm so scared that the world is ending. My small brain just can't handle it. Shut up and pull yourself together, woman, and make me a sandwich whilst I go attempt to be useful. Just boring and dumb. I absolutely hate this book, and calling it an apocalyptic novel is honestly an insult to the genre. It's just emotionally empty and nothing happens in terms of plot. So because that book was so bad, I needed another book to satisfy my post-apocalyptic craving. So the 5th book I picked up last month was I Cheerfully Refuse by Leif Enger. This is a post-apocalyptic novel set in America where the country is suffering from societal collapse. It doesn't explicitly say what happened, but people are running from the law and taking up dirty jobs in order to get money, etc, etc. Everything's looking very bleak. And we follow a man who decides to take this boat that him and his wife used to travel on and basically go on his own adventure, hoping to find meaning. And during this journey, he comes across a lot of unexpected people along the way, including a young girl that he ends up taking responsibility for. And this didn't really satisfy my craving either, because I only gave this 2 stars, so clearly not a month of post-apocalyptic novels for me. I just couldn't get into this book at all. The pacing was so painfully slow. The plot also just seemed to uselessly meander throughout. Like, we're given some details and anecdotes here and there, but not enough context to really understand why things are collapsing or to really understand the gravity of the situation that's going on. Like, there were no stakes to get invested in. I felt like I was just following a group of people that were like, the world's ending. It's not that bad. We can make the most of it. I was doing that thing, which, to be honest, I don't really often do, but where your eyes kind of move across the page like you're reading, but like nothing's going in your head because you're completely zoned out. At first, I thought because I was reading this whilst traveling, I was like, oh, I'm not properly getting into it because I'm getting very distracted by a lot of things around me. So when I came home, I was already a quarter of the way through the book, but I just decided to restart from page 1 again, hoping to give this a proper chance. But no, even when I was locked into this book, I still just couldn't get into it. I'm not joking. Out of my 4 weeks this month, it generally took me 2 weeks to read this book because it was just such a slog to get through. However, there were some aspects of this book I did like. For example, I liked the dynamic between the guy and the little girl here. It very much reminded me of Joel and Ellie in The Last of Us, which I made a video about, which I'll link down below if you want to watch. I think I am just a sucker for dad-daughter relationships. There's just something so wholesome about them. I also did enjoy this book of showcasing how bleak can things be when society falls. Maybe some people may think it's too unrealistic, but honestly, I quite like seeing this potentially disastrous side of what could happen. I don't know, it might just be me who disliked this book because, again, this had some pretty good reviews on Goodreads. But moving on, my 6th and final book of last month was Good Material by Dolly Alderton. This book follows a 35-year-old male comedian who is basically navigating his way through a breakup. After being dumped by his long-term girlfriend, he basically has to navigate the messy and confusing landscape of modern relationships, as well as getting used to the changed dynamic between friends who are all now married and have kids. It very much explores male vulnerability and how men grieve and heal from breakups. And I rated this book 3 stars, probably the only book here that I didn't aggressively love or hate. I like this book for showcasing how men deal with heartbreak. At first, I was skeptical when reading this because it's written by a woman, I'm a woman reading it, so how on earth would I deem if it's even accurate? But I found out before reading it that the author actually interviewed 15 men and basically asked them what they would do in certain scenarios and how they felt about A, B, and C, and so on, and used that data to write this book. And I quite liked it because so many of the books I've read about heartbreak have always been centered around women. So this was super interesting to see how men deal with it, especially because I feel like men do have a harder time processing breakups than women do. I feel like they don't have the same emotional intimacy to talk about breakups in the way that girls do, and this honestly I feel like is a very helpful way for girls to move on from a breakup. So it was interesting to see how men struggle in different ways, in honestly things that I've never even thought of. However, it was such a struggle to read this because the main character was written in this way that was very whiny and annoying and honestly had the emotional bandwidth of a flip-flop. This guy is honestly the epitome of what's currently wrong in this current dating pool in London, and honestly, it was a little bit triggering for me. I understand that maybe this was the point from the author to showcase how men go a little bit annoying and weird after breakups, and I was trying my best to sympathize with him because he was going through a breakup, but he was just doing some absolutely weird stuff that I could never fathom doing, and he just came across as so moany and tiring that the book just kind of wasn't that easy to get through. Honestly, my favorite part of this book was the end, where we actually get a few chapters from the ex-girlfriend's perspective. Without this, I actually would have rated this book lower because she comes across as way more likable and interesting and literally voices things that I have thought myself when it comes to dating here. And this is an aspect of Dolly Alderton's writing why I loved her other books. Like, I really enjoyed Ghosts and also Everything I Know About Love. That's one of my favorite books. So I don't think I like this one as much because I just don't think it really worked as well in the male perspective. It's still a funny read, especially if you're British. There's a lot of niche references that I did get a good kick out of, but if you're annoyed by whiny male characters, then maybe give this one a miss. And on that note, those are all the books I read in May. And like with all my other monthly reading wrap-ups, I'm going to give you a quick minute rundown of my past month. For the first week of May, I was actually in Spain for a holiday, which was super relaxing and well needed. I actually posted a reading vlog during my time here, which I will link down below if you want to watch. When I came back to the UK, I actually went to Bristol for a work away day, and the only thing I seemed to film was my hotel. Yes, I did have a bath in that, and it was absolutely glorious. I'm not going to lie, I was so bad at capturing footage this month of things I did, so I'm just going to show you some random clips of London. But I spent a lot of time with friends in parks and pubs, and it was just nice because the weather's got so much better. I also rejoined my gym for the first time in about 2 years, which was a big deal for me. Bank holiday was also last weekend, so I ended up traveling back up to York for a friend's birthday where we went to the beach. I absolutely love going to the beach now I live in London. I just feel like I never see the sea that often, so when I do, I get a really good kick out of it. In terms of media I watched last month, I saw Sinners in cinema, which was really great. I did not see that twist coming, and it was genuinely so good. I also saw Hurry Up Tomorrow, which, controversial opinion, I actually really enjoyed this, but I have been a fan of The Weeknd since literally 2013. I don't really like the hate that's been given towards this movie. I'm not really about it. People complaining that this was very self-indulgent from The Weeknd, I'm literally just like, yeah, it's a film about his own album. Of course it's going to be a bit self-indulgent. It's literally about him. Maybe because I'm biased, because I love The Weeknd, but I thought it was very artistic and I liked all the niche references he put in there for his fans. God forbid, in a world of sequels, prequels, and remakes, that someone tries to do something a little different. You know? And honestly, since April, work for me has just been super busy, so please be a little bit patient with me over the next few weeks if I'm not making videos every single week. I am trying my best, but please don't be mad at me. I also want to read more books and make sure I have enough content to give you guys, and also kind of enjoy my summer as well, so just a heads up if you don't constantly see weekly videos from me for like the next month or so. But anyway, I'm running out of breath. That was my May. What books did you read last month? Let me know which ones that you enjoyed and would recommend me to read in the comments below. If you like this video, why not drop a like down below? It really helps my channel out. And if you're new here, feel free to subscribe. I'm also on Goodreads if you want to follow my reviews over there. I post in real time what books I'm reading. And feel free to also follow me on Instagram. I post my personal stuff on there, but I also post the books I read, letting you know what they're about and what I rate them out of 10. And once again, thank you to my returning subscribers for being here. I see you and appreciate every single one of you. Love you so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.